Geist of St Traft.
Angels and Armories.
Alright guys, welcome to PastorPlayz. I'm here with DJTZARRY. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
I told him I was going to say it wrong. Terry's someone I met here at the shop. We're here today at the we are here today at Next Level Espresso. We're going to go over a deck take for a series we call What's Your Life Total, where just different people I've crossed paths with, and the Commander decks they play, and eventually the Flesh and Blood decks they play, a chance for them to show some of the stuff that they've brewed up and how it's worked for them, how it's not worked for them. And today we have a fun one for you. So when I was talking with Terry about doing this video, he had mentioned Geist of St Traft. Geist of St Traft actually really interests me because I do play blue-white, but the control side of blue-white, I actually have a Grand Arbiter deck, which, as I'm sure you know, everyone hates to see Grand Arbiter.
Yeah.
I actually don't play it often because it's like super control, but I'm a youth pastor, so I've made like a church-themed deck, which is Grand Arbiter is like the Pope, you know. So, which is why I like Geist of St Traft, because he reminds me of like your Holy Spirit warrior. So it could actually fit in the theme of my deck, I think.
I hadn't thought of it that way. That's a good idea.
Yeah. So before we get into all this, as a theme for this show, which we're calling "What's Your Life Total," Terry, if I was to ask you, in the way you play Magic, what is your favorite way to drain people's life?
I started out, I guess 3 years ago, with Grand Warlord Grata, so I guess I'm still gonna go with aggro. This is definitely an aggro deck too.
Oh, nice.
Just
nice.
Beat face until you get everyone's life total down to 0.
Perfect. So it's funny that you say that to me, because I started off like your typical mono green big creatures and trample.
Yeah.
And I like to turn cards sideways. I know that's a mechanic in Commander that is kind of shied away from these days. But for me, I've kind of morphed into a Mardu, attack everything all the time, and you usually get dive from crackback. But you know, you gotta have some fun and turn stuff sideways. Otherwise, what are we doing?
It is important to have that blockers for the crackback, especially in this deck.
Yeah. So why don't we start with this? Why don't let's read off Geist for us here, and let's talk a little bit about what he does.
So Geist of St Traft, keyword hexproof, and then it says whenever he attacks, put a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. I exile that token at the end of combat.
Okay. So we like to see hexproof on a commander. It makes him a little hard to target. And he's making 4/4s that come in tapped and attacking. And what's interesting about that is I think of like Adeline from the Innistrad block, this newest Innistrad block. She makes creatures that are come in tapped and attacking specific player that you're attacking already. So if I'm understanding Geist correctly, that 4/4 angel, you can point it in any direction. Correct. It doesn't have to be wherever Geist is attacking.
Yes, Geist in and of itself is also sort of a political deck, because it's, let me get 2 damage through, because Geist is a 2/2.
Sure.
And then if you have something on him, equipment-wise, if you build it that way, which I have, Voltron, you would do a card draw feature or something, because most people don't care about a 2/2, even if it is commander damage, until they realize what the deck is.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so essentially you could talk your way into, hey, I need to make a 4/4 to deal with Timmy, so Johnny, let me attack you with my 2/2.
Exactly.
And then send the 4/4 flying over at Timmy. Okay, I like that a lot. I really like that a lot. Okay, so let's get into some of the main themes of the deck. You mentioned Voltron, so we're playing auras and equipments.
We're trying to make auras and equipments. Okay. I even, for some spice, I threw in the mutate mechanic.
Okay.
That way, like the mutate that lets you draw a card. So, you slap that under Geist and it's instantaneous. And because it's also a creature, it has hexproof, which helps phenomenally with continuing the game.
Absolutely, yeah. Your targeted removal is basically null and void, which obviously, as you know, when we're playing Commander, you run typically, at least for me, somewhere between 10 and 15 single target removals, because you have 3 other people. So you really have to kind of keep things in control. And I'm not one for lots of board wipes. How do you play board wipe heavy?
Not really. I have In this stack, I have, I believe, 2 board wipes.
Okay.
And then
That's about what I run.
Yeah, and then I have 2 spot removal, which is Path and Faithful Absence, of course.
Oh yeah, beautiful white cards.
Yep. And then as protection, I'll play Chroma's Will. That's super important when you play it too.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So then let's get into like main strategy. So we're playing Voltron. We know we're trying to maybe win with some commander damage from Geist, also making some blockers and other bigger threats. How are we getting Geist equipped? I guess let's start with this. What are we equipping Geist with? Let's
Great
get to
question.
that. Let's give him some weapons here.
We do a lot of just equipment and auras, and I have picked out a few here that actually are very important. So you want to start with...
Yeah, we'll just walk through a few and say what they do and their costs.
So a good thing with Geist is either protection from creatures or unblockable, like Aqueous Form, for example. It also lets you scry on the card.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that is very beneficial.
Is that scry every time he attacks?
Yep.
Oh, sweet. Okay, I really like that.
Yep, so when an enchanted creature attacks, you scry one.
Yeah,
so
okay.
you make an angel, you get to scry one. And then there's other things like the Invocation of St Traft, Seraphic, didn't say that right, but the Great Sword, and then Holy Avenger. The Invocation and the Great Sword also make angels. And with that mechanic, you also want to have something like Sundial the Infinite, which you can end the turn, keeping those angels, therefore
Oh,
also
that's
having
super tricky.
blockers. Exactly.
Okay, hold up. So let's understand this. So when we have Sundial the Infinite out, and Geist attacks, that we're exiling at the end of what? Exile at the end of combat. So what you're doing is you're dealing damage, and then before end of combat triggers your Sundial the Infinite, ending your turn.
Yep. So before combat's even done, you just skip your second main, you just go straight to the next turn for whoever.
That is awesome.
And if you have these other equipments on there, the Invocation and the Great Sword, then you also make multiple angels and they all stay.
Okay.
There is also other equipments that create 4/4 angels that I put in here that don't go away, but they're also not attacking. They just are great, which are great for blockers.
Okay, so yeah, so like I mentioned, I play Mardu and it's swing everything all the time because of attack triggers. And you've probably seen my last deck for Ishin. If you haven't yet, check that out. But that deck does suffer from a lot of crackback because a lot of creatures come in and it's about swinging. Outside of like Adeline, and I have a couple enchantments that give vigilance. If those aren't out though, it's just pray that they don't target you.
Yep. And one of the only responses really people have of getting rid of Geist are like board wipes, for example. So board wipes, and that's why you would run like Eolumbra, which is Totem Armor. So you run all the Totem Armors, you run all the protections and stuff like that. And that really helps keep Geist on the battlefield for long periods of time.
That's really
long
cool.
enough to get that 21 commander damage through, which is also important for having instantaneous ways to equip your commander. So that's why like Pure Steel Paladin is very important. Arden is important, or Ardeen, I guess, is the Intrepid Archaeologist.
That's a mouthful.
It is, yep. So, they'll read basically whenever an equipment enters for the Pure Steel Paladin, you draw a card. And then equipment you control have 0, as long as there are 3 or more artifacts, which you're gonna pretty much have.
Oh yeah.
Unless, of course, someone blows them all up.
Honestly, I feel like the Pure Steel Paladin didn't even have the Metalcraft ability. It's just good on its own when you're playing a lot of equipment. You're just gonna draw a ton of cards from playing stuff you wanted to play anyway.
Most definitely.
Cool.
And then, of course, the Ardeen, or however it's pronounced, just at the beginning of combat on your turn, attach any number of auras equipment you control to target permanent or player. And in this case, permanent. Geist.
Yeah, you're gonna attach everything to Geist and then smack someone real big.
Yep. And it also doubles both of those as blockers.
Oh, that's awesome. If I remember correctly, before we started filming, you mentioned you have a Colossus Hammer in here.
I do have a Colossus Hammer.
How beautiful is it to strap a Colossus Hammer with Ardeen to a commander and then smack someone for 10 plus?
Well, it did 14 damage the other day on I think it was turn 4.
Oh my goodness.
So it was pretty good.
That's awesome. That's a quick way to knock people off the table.
It's also a quick way to get targeted, which I don't think I survived the 5th turn.
Nice. I see so we laid a Halvar out here.
Mm-hmm.
I love Halvar. Halvar is one that I run in my equipment decks. Giving things double strike turns out is just really good.
And that's also
cheating costs.
Yep. And so I also added Duelist Heritage in here, which whenever one or more creatures attack, you may have target attacking creature gain double strike until end of turn.
Oh yeah.
Super phenomenal politics card also, but also it's just like, you know, you can beat face with it. It also adds to Helvar's abilities, because, you know, Helvar also doubles as an equipment too.
Oh yeah, sweet. So I didn't think about the political side of this. So if buddy next to you wants to attack someone, you can grant them double strike, essentially. That's awesome. I like that aspect of it too. Okay. So what do we have for some interaction then? You know, obviously we have to mess around with our partners a little bit and what they're doing. You mentioned Path of Exile, Faithful Absence, beautiful white removal cards. Do we have any other interactions that we're really messing with, or is that kind of what we keyed in on?
For the most part, I play Time Wipe and Day of Judgment. Obviously, Time Wipe, you know, bounce my commander to hand.
Yep.
But I also run Borrowed Time. It reads when it enters battlefield, you exile target 9-land permanent until it leaves.
Cool.
It helps a lot as far as like something that you don't have specific removal for, or someone's causing problems. It's another good politics card.
Yep.
I do run Memory Lapse and Negate, and so those also help. Although they're more in there just as you know, in case someone wants to approach the second sun or something.
Cool.
But into the Royal, I also play, which return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Kicker is 2. If you kick it, you draw a card. So it's card draw and, you know, utility on it too.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like more times than not, you're probably trying to kick that right, just to get a little extra value out of it. And if I remember correctly, we talked that you sometimes use that to bounce your own stuff, right?
Yep.
Because it's like, hey, someone's going to remove it. Hey, guess what? I'm just going to bounce it.
Exactly. It's a great instant speed response.
Okay, cool.
I do have a cheeky move that I threw in here. I added a Time Warp, which target player takes an extra turn after this one.
Oh, yeah.
It is 5 mana, but it does a benefit. It adds another like level of, oh, I didn't expect that. And that's one thing I enjoy with making my decks, is adding stuff that people don't really expect or that don't commonly happen.
Which is fun, especially with blue-white. Because what I love about this deck is when I think blue-white, like I only think control. Voltron is the last thing I'm thinking about if someone sits down across from me with blue-white.
Right.
So it's very interesting that we can play Voltron with which we've gotten a great access of cards in white that just do a ton of stuff with equipment and auras, which plays really well into Geist's ability.
The other thing that you don't really think about when playing like white, I guess blue does some, but you know, graveyard recursion. So for this deck, there's a lot of enchantments. So, you know, having to return all enchantment cards from graveyard to the battlefield is very important. And that's why I run the Resurgent Belief. It is a suspend for 2 turns. And that just kind of, I've actually never had to play it because most people don't run like a Vandal Blast, you know, and stuff like that. But yeah, it is always good to have that utility there if you need it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And so what I've noticed, so when I play Voltron, I play Zergo Helm Smasher. He's like a 7/2 indestructible on my turn only. So the idea is like throw a bunch of equipment on him and attack because he's indestructible. But I've noticed that if my equipment or my auras get removed, it's kind of like backbreaking. Like, it's like, now what do you do? Like, cool, I have this 7 indestructible, but you're just going to chump block him.
Right.
And it doesn't really get the job done. So it's nice having something, and I actually will consider that for myself because I run a lot of auras too. The Resurgent Belief, that's really nice. I like that. So we've talked a little bit about some of our enchantments that are giving double strike and our creatures that are helping us equip. Did we mention Stoneheart Giant? I love Stoneheart Giant.
So Stoneheart Giant and Open the Armory are both search your library for an aura or equipment.
Yep.
It looks like Stoneheart is just equipment.
Yep.
But you know, they're good utilities. They help early game, late game. They're good at any time in the game. Plus, I mean, Stoneheart Giant is a 4/4 vigilance, so it's another good blocker.
Yeah. Well, and that's nice with Open the Armory. I mean, I love Stoneheart Giant. So when I play Zergo, everyone hates this, but when Stoneheart Giant comes out, and if he survives till my next turn, I'm gonna pay and I'm gonna go find World Slayer, and it's gonna destroy everyone's lands too, and that's no fun for anyone. But with Open the Armory, I mean, we talk about the Salon Commander, right? Like your cards that are tutoring usually are the ones that are of like astronomical value, right?
Right.
Like your vampiric tutors and so on and so forth. Open the Armory is a 2-drop sorcery level tutor in white that for this specific deck or for decks that use equipments or auras, like it goes and grabs the specific thing you need. Like that's beautiful, right?
Right.
For 2 mana, that is an amazing tutor.
It is.
And it's just an uncommon.
Yeah. A lot of people, I suppose at this point, you heard of the class of Steel Hammer, I believe is what it's called. And
Yep.
you'd be like, oh, go grab that. Well, sometimes I prefer to grab something that benefits me early and late game, and that would be Shadow Spear. You know, trample lifelink on a stick.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a great. And then if anyone else is trying to be cheeky with Indestructible, you just kind of, no, yeah, bye. So.
Yeah, that's cool. I really like that. There's a lot of versatility in a
It is
2-drop
very
tutor
much.
like that.
Yep.
Let's see, what else have we talked about here on the table?
Well, I also run a couple of utility lands. I like Buried Ruin. You pay 2 to sacrifice it and return target artifact card from your graveyard to hand.
Oh yeah, cool.
You know, the versatility there.
Yep.
Access Tunnel, creature can't be blocked. And then the Hall of Stone Giants and Cave of Frost Dragon, they both turn into creatures, and those can help as blockers, and so it's always good to have a little bit of utility as land.
I always sleep on, so I play Frost Dragon a little bit, but I always sleep on how good Hall of the Storm Giant is. If you have a turn where it's like, I'm just going to attack and not do anything, because let's be honest, when the blue player doesn't tap any mana and passes the turn, it's a scary thing, right? And I've slept on so many times someone having a Hall of the Storm Giants in their land base and then powering up and just blocking me with a 7/7, and it's like that feels terrible every time.
Especially because it has Ward 3, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Sram, so Sram I run in my decks too. I love this. It says whenever you cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle spell, draw a card. Simple, drawing cards for doing the things you already want to do anyways,
Yep.
right? And same with, I'm going to say this bad, is it Keleth? Does sound familiar?
I believe Keleth is how it's said.
Yeah, whenever commander you control attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it. This whole deck is about attacking with your commander. You're going to
Yep.
keep buffing and win by commander damage. I like that
Indeed.
too. We talked about Path of Exile, Faithful Absence. If you are not running those in white, you don't know what you're doing. Chroma's Will as well, great protection card.
And it also is an alternate win con because, you know, if Geist's only 11 damage, you slap that out there and all of a sudden someone's not there.
Oh yeah, Flying Vigilance Toaster. Jeez,
Yep.
beats. That is awesome. Yo, yeah, if you control your commander, you can do both of them.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that. So then the other ability says creatures you control gain lifelink, destructible, and protection from all colors to end of turn. That is just the definition of a winning card right there.
Yep, it is
absolutely.
indeed.
And it 4-drop at instant speed is fairly playable to do when you need to do it.
Especially because I only run 30 lands, it is even playable in this deck. I did run 29, but I found another land, a utility land that I really wanted, so I just kind of swapped a lesser creature out for it. And yeah, so.
Which, for the record, I do not advise running just 30 lands.
Yeah.
Terry's crazy.
No, I wouldn't do that, yeah.
But I asked him about this beforehand because when I heard 30 lands, I'm like, that seems suspect because like 34 is like my rule of like I don't cut below 34. I try to run 36, but also I really like cards that aren't lands, so I usually cut to 34. And a couple decks I had ran 32 that ran okay, but you were telling me you don't have much trouble with 30 lands, huh? You seem to be, you don't get mana screwed too often?
Well, it's a kind of a toss-up. If I don't shuffle really well, like after this deck tech, I'll probably shuffle, 3-4 hours at a time. Not really, but you gotta
Sounds
really
good, though.
shuffle, yeah. And the low land count doesn't really hurt that much because most of this stuff in here is 3 to 5. A lot of them are less than that. So even if I only get 4 land out, as long as I can get some type of protection on my commander that doesn't make, or if I'm not playing against a deck that is like I have to sacrifice, and that is the flaw of this deck, is if someone plays a deck that I have to sacrifice my commander, then it's pretty much shut down.
Oh,
So
yeah, I've been there before. That is
Yep.
a painful mechanic. Where it's
It
like
is.
you have one really big creature that will win you the game, and now it's gone.
Yep. And I mean, after, Time Warp's only 5, so if you can get another hand in there, it's worth it. But, so yeah, it's really difficult to play against decks that make me have to sack my own stuff.
Sure.
That's
sure.
also why I do run probably more creatures than some Voltron decks would, but also so I have that ability to have sack outlets. And also, all the angel creations, those are very beneficial too.
Cool. Yeah, we talked about our Umbras, Eel Umbras, and Holy Mantle.
The Holy Mantle,
yeah. Beautiful card.
Aqueous Form.
I run, in some of my Voltron decks, I run Hyena Umbra as well. It does basically the same thing. I can't remember, I think it gives Vigilance maybe? But the Totem Armor is really what I care about in that. Yeah, and your Seraphic Greatsword and Holy Greatsword, you're creating more tokens.
The Holy Avenger is an interesting card because it gives a quick creature double strike, but it also, when you deal combat damage, you can put an aura from your hand onto the battlefield attached to it.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's super good. Especially if you have other stuff that it just kind of is versatile, really.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I like the idea of like Holy Avenger into an Aqueous Form. It's like,
oh yeah.
By the way, I'm not you can't block me now, and I'm gonna scry every time I attack. Just to get
this does say deals combat damage, so
sure.
it would have to be
through.
next turn.
Yeah. Right. That's really cool though. Yeah, so if I understand correctly, then you have Holy Avenger on Geist of St Traft. You hit me because I'm the guy that started slow, and now you can put Aqueous Form onto Geist in your second man, basically, right?
Yes. Or it would be after combat.
Or right
so
after
it wouldn't
combat,
even be. It would just be damage phase. So yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So then you're not running into the mistake of having to Sundial the Infinite and then lose this trigger. You're still going to get it.
Yeah.
And get it before combat ends. Cool.
And at that point, it could be early enough game you wouldn't even need the Sundial.
Oh yeah, probably yeah.
Or even if it is late game at that point, I mean, most people are going to be half dead at that point anyway. So
cool. I really like the. I've always wanted to run a deck that abuses Sundial because it just seems like a fun mechanic to keep stuff that you're not supposed to get rid of. Any of those, like I think it's like the Myriad cards that make tokens that attack everyone else when they come back.
Okay.
But they all exile at the end of combat. But with Sundial, you just keep 4 tokens. Like,
yeah.
I always love that kind of thing. Cool. So okay. So what else we got here? We got a few more cards we want to get through.
So I run a couple of cards that just beef up the commander himself.
Yep.
It allows for, it allows that the commander, the base power being 4/4 indestructible. Like that's important to obviously board wipe central. So that and having the politics cards for example, like the Orzhov Advocus is really good. It gives you an extra turn or two maybe.
Cool.
And so it's just kind of the versatility that I just kind of to be as aggro as quickly as possible is kind of in stomp phase. So
okay, cool. So in thinking of if someone who watched this video and thinks about maybe I want to play Geist of St Traft, how do you think, at least with the build you have right now, how does it fare like in a full pod? Say you're playing with 4 guys at the shop.
It tends to do decent. I mean, the previous question about mana. I mean, every deck is going to get mana hurt eventually.
Yep.
But most of the time, this is a pretty consistent deck, and I think a lot of people are looking for consistent decks, not necessarily decks that really win hard all the time.
Sure.
Because a lot of times it's consistency that actually matters, and in this case, it really does. Because if I don't pull, Aqueous Form quickly, then I can't really attack, so then I can't further the board state with the Angels, even if I have Sundial.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, my commander will die. So it all, even in a 4-person pod, it still does well because I do have some of the politics cards in there, and normally this is not a threat until it is. So other people can work around that, and I can use that to my advantage with the politics.
Yeah. Cool.
But yeah, so it's pretty simple to win a 4-person pod. I guess it's about the same probability as anything else.
Sure. Would you think that if I was building a first-time commander, is it something I think you could pilot pretty easy?
Yeah, I mean, you just cast Commander for 3. It's a blue, white, and colorless. So cast it for 3. It has hexproof, and you create Angels. So if you can get it out on, turn 2, turn 3, then it's going to be a pretty beneficial card because you can already deal a bunch of damage. I mean, you also have to consider though, doing that so early may make you the target. So sometimes I just cast it and don't do anything for a turn or 2 intentionally. It's just, you got to read the board too. It's very important to kind of know who you're playing against and what you're playing against.
Yeah. And just to add to your kind of politicking thought, like I said already, when the blue player just passes turn with mana untapped, it's almost politicking of itself. Like, please don't do anything to them because you're going to provoke a counter spell or something. Cool.
Yep.
And even if you're not running them, right? Like I didn't see a counter spell. Are you running like any of your standard
I am.
counter spells?
I'm running the negate. And
okay, you're still running negate.
I don't know where it went. But yeah, I'm running.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
running
So we
two
have some
counterspells,
counterspell
yeah.
options. So here's the thing. Because I've run across this with blue players too that don't run all your typical counterspells. You always assume they are because it's blue. So it's like, oh, well, I guess I want to be friends with them. So in a lot of ways, you can politic in that direction too.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. You know, after this I might edit the deck some. That way, other people, you know, if I ever play against anyone out there, then they won't, you know, have my full deck in this.
Yeah, cool.
But it's still good. I mean, even I highly recommend playing Geist if you want to have a lot of fun, just beating face and having people try to figure out.
That's
how
my
to
favorite mechanic of Magic.
It
is just swinging sideways. So that's cool.
Yep.
Cool. So and then the other question I always like to ask, because so me and my wife, we started playing Magic during COVID. So our Magic was very much 1v1 all the time.
Okay.
So how does Geist do in the 1v1 scenario?
1v1, it does pretty well. I mean, Voltron does well on its own. It's often easier to beat someone one-on-one than it is 4 or 3, even, you know, as a pod.
Sure.
So you'll
I
always
imagine
run.
it's more like just get all the equipment and start swinging.
Yeah.
Right? One-on-one. That's really what you're trying to do.
It does. There are some mechanics or some games where, you know, the sacrifice or like, oh, I have to target you because you're the only player. So sometimes it's just cards are stacked against you, literally.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
So every game is different, and the majority of the time, Voltron does pretty well one-on-one.
Cool. Sweet. Well, Geist of St Traft seems really fun, and I am very surprised that I said Geist this entire video, because I was telling Terry beforehand, as I was practicing for this, I was saying Ghost of St Traft all day yesterday. And now I'm going to say it for the rest of the video, right? But Geist of St Traft, white and Azorius for a 2/2 hexproof that makes angels that are just swinging in different directions. That I really like. This seems like a fun deck. I want to add this to my Grand Arbiter deck. I feel like it fits on theme.
I mean, you could. I don't know. I guess you'll have to.
Yeah, I'll have to mess with it. Yeah, because that deck's mostly all control. But I found myself controlling to the point where I don't actually win. I just stop everyone from doing stuff. I don't know if that's fun or not.
Well, that's why one reason I went with the Voltron versus control is because no one ever. I mean, not everyone, but most people don't have fun when you just control the whole board with Stalemate. Because then the game takes forever. And I mean, most Commander games already take forever, it seems. So.
Yeah, I've played Grand Arbiter in a couple pods that was like a 45-minute game was like 3 hours.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I'm glad we played one game tonight.
Yeah, cool. I played this deck it took 5 hours the one day because there's like everyone had just the perfect deck to make it insanely chaotic. But it's very rare to have that happen. But.
Yeah. And I think we kind of talked about this already, but if I'm understanding correctly, the worst enemy for the deck is anything that's causing you to sack commander or sack creature.
Yep.
Because it really sets you off your plan. Yeah.
Well, I mean, after your commander gets too high of mana, even if you have 60 lands, you can't cast it. I mean, you know, it's just one of those things. Yeah. And that's why
most games are over. We're seeing these days like between 7 and 9 turns, and games are coming to a close. So, yeah, you really have a finite amount of time where it's viable to use your commander.
Yep.
Cool. Well, this is going to be a fun deck. I hope you guys check it out. We will have a quick take coming in the future for it as well, with just some quick takeaways. But Geist of St Traft seems like a lot of fun. And like I said, it's a low-cost deck that I think you can pilot early on if you're newer to Magic. Even if you're more experienced, having hexproof and making tokens, you know, you can throw in cards like Anointed Procession if you can afford them and make 1 billion tokens. And you know, I'm a big fan of that. Yeah, then you're making, you know, to attack on turn 4 and have 8 power angels would be pretty awesome. But yeah, some of those cards are just kind of out of the price range. But if you have them already in your collection, by all means, those are cards that just beef up a strategy like this. But, cool, Terry. Where can they find you on your social media platforms? Yeah,
I am DJTZARRY on all platforms. You can just search it. I believe I googled to see. Someone asked me, so you just search. It's DJTZARRY, and it'll come up on everything. Cool. Yeah, I know I follow you on Instagram and TikTok. And you mentioned maybe doing a little bit of YouTube in the future? Yeah, I kind of do some of my D&D campaign and stuff on YouTube, but most of it, I mean, because I'm still working through all the technical aspects of it, it kind of, I have a whole video on there. I realized no sound from anyone but me, so it's just like, oh, come on. So once I figure everything out, but yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I look forward to doing some more work with you in the future. And so Terry and I met here at the shop. This is our buddy Eli's shop. It's a good place to have coffee here in Alma, and as well as play board games and just hang out. Terry and I have actually been playing Flesh and Blood as of recently, and we hope to have some content coming with that. I'm gonna be honest with you, I just barely learned how to play, so I have no business telling you how to build a deck or show you decks that I have.
Well, I do have 2 videos on the YouTube of the Flesh and Blood, because I've been recording the tournaments that we have here Monday nights at 6 p.m. And for Flesh and Blood. And so you can see those. I actually have to post last Mondays. I forgot until just now.
Awesome.
But,
awesome.
Yeah, so.
Cool. Well, thanks, Terry. I appreciate you walking us through this deck tech. And
no problem.
We'll, like I said, we'll get a quick take out here as well in a bit. And you guys can, just kind of sift through Geist, as always, like when we build decks too, use your resources like EDH Rec and so on and so forth online to just look at cards that statistically have been shown to just be bombers in decks like this. So even guys like us who have been playing for a while now and build decks, we still refer to all the guys that have been doing it for far longer than we have. To try to figure out some of the best avenues and figure out which cards you maybe want to cut, or maybe you have a card that we didn't talk about because it's in your collection that just seems like a good fit. By all means, this is just kind of a good avenue to get you started if you're thinking about playing Geist and Azorius. So cool. All right, guys. It's been fun having Terry on the channel. You're going to see a whole lot more of him because it seems like we're here all the time. And this is just, like I said, this is our hangout spot in our local card shop. So we'll see you guys later. PastorPlayz, DJTZARRY. There we go.
DJTZARRY.
Got it right. All right, we'll see you guys
later.